At the beginning of our movie, we are introduced to Nic and Jules, who are a lesbian couple in Los Angeles. And Nic and Jules are in a long-term relationship, and they're very committed to each other and they love each other very much, but their relationship is still far from perfect. And they've both each given birth to a child using the same anonymous sperm donor, and they are mothers to the 18-year-old Joni Mitchell and the 15-year-old Laser. And Joni is conceived by Nic and Laser by Jules, which makes them half siblings. And Joni recently graduated high school, and she got accepted to all the universities that she applied to, whereas Laser is still in high school and he's an excellent athlete. And Nic is a doctor, an obstetrician, and she's the primary breadwinner in the house, and she's the more stricter parent, whereas Jules is more laid back and the cool parent, and she's the housewife. And she graduated in architecture, and she recently started a gardening business, and she's not really supported by Nic, and she has no clients, and their relationship has begun to go stale. And next we see a little deeper into Joni's life, and she's hanging out at her room with her best friend Sasha and Jai. And Sasha commented on how Joni's classmates are very attractive, while implying that she would hook up with one of them by the end of the first week. And Jai seems to disagree with this idea, and Sasha continued on by suggesting that Jai and Joni should shag already and get it over with, and they both turned to look at her, and Jai suggested that we're just friends, there's really nothing going on, but it's a pretty awkward moment for the both of them, because it's obvious that Joni has a massive crush on Jai. And Laser, Joni's brother, was grinding up some drug with a hammer with his friend Clay, and they both sniff it and begin play fighting as Clay's father joins in, and Laser watches them intently, and he has this grin on his face because he wishes he had a father as well. And at nighttime, while Nic, Jules, Joni, and Laser were all eating dinner at a table, Jules announces that she's purchased a truck for gardening purposes, and Nic appears to be uninterested in this piece of information, and Joni turned 18 not so long ago, and Nic reminds her to write a thank you letter for her birthday. And while they were on their bed, Jules and Nic have a bit of an argument over the truck that Nic thought was a very impulsive idea, but later they make up and they both get off as they watch two dudes getting it on this really nice adult video. And while Joni was writing her thank you notes, Laser joins her on the balcony, and he asks Joni if she ever thought about making a call to their sperm donor and if she's ever interested in this kind of thing. And she tells him that she never really cared or even thought about it. And Laser is very eager to find his biological father, but he's too young to request that information from the sperm bank, and he needs to be at least 18 years old to request it. And so he begs his 18-year-old sister Joni to contact them. And Joni listens to her brother and she contacts them. And the sperm bank identifies Paul Hatfield, a restaurant owner, as the sperm donor. Apparently this guy Paul is their biological dad. And Paul runs a cozy little organic restaurant with food from his own organic garden. And he never married or has any other children. And he's a guy that's really cool in a way that involves no conscious effort. And Paul thinks it's pretty cool to meet his adult kids that he's never even seen before. And once he finds out that they wanted to speak to him, he contacted Joni and he proposed that he take her and her brother out for lunch. And even though he's not married and never had kids, back at home we see Paul and his lover Tanya, who are very intimate with one another. And Paul tells her about how he donated sperm when he was only 19 for $60, and he never thought that they'd use his stuff, but apparently they did. And when Paul meets his kids for brunch, they hit it off, and Paul is very delighted with the connection that he feels with Joni, who's the more outgoing of the two. And Joni is impressed by Paul's bohemian lifestyle, but Laser thinks it's just alright. And Paul is very happy to be in their lives. And as they walk out of Paul's restaurant, he shows them his motorbike, which Laser found very cool, obviously, and they told him that Nic, their mother, is very strict about riding motorcycles. And Joni swears her brother to secrecy, as she doesn't really want to upset their moms. And later on, Laser and his friend Clay were sniffing around Jules and Nic's bedroom, and they find their special videos. And Clay insists on watching it, and even though Laser doesn't seem like he would enjoy something like that, he caves in and they start watching the videos, and it's two dudes getting it on, and Jules actually walks in on them. And Nic and Jules encourage Laser to tell them if he's seeing anyone, presumably thinking that he's gay, but Laser thought they were asking if he met anyone lately, and he told them about the meeting with Paul. And Jules and Nic are very shocked at this point because they think Paul is his boyfriend or something. But it doesn't take long for them to find out who Paul really is as he comes to their house for dinner. And at their home, they start sharing stories, and he starts talking about how he went to college to find himself. And when Paul discovers that Jules does landscape design, he hires her to do some work on his backyard. And she's very thrilled with the prospect, although Nic doesn't really like this idea. And Paul shows Jules the garden area sloping down behind his house and what looks like the Hollywood Hills, and they settle on this one concept. And meanwhile, Joni's showing her friends her new dad, which Sasha admits looks very attractive. And the next day, as Laser was hanging out with Paul and his friend Clay, they drive around and drop Clay at his house, and Paul casually points out to Laser that he doesn't like how Clay speaks to Laser. And he said it in a very casual way because he didn't want to seem like a dad about it, because he just met this kid. He can't go around being like, oh my god, I care about you and I don't want you being friends with this guy. Yeah, that's why he was very calm in the way that he delivered that message. And back home, we see Nic and Jules have lost their sexual mojo, and things have gotten a lot stale, mostly because Nic is very unemotional to Jules these days because she's all about work and she's a doctor and she's a very strict person, and we see this taking its toll on their sex life. And since Paul is very appreciative of Jules' talent, and she likes that he acknowledges her work in contrast to Nic, who Jules feels never supports her career attempts, all of a sudden, Jules impulsively kisses Paul. And then she stops for a minute, referring to the fact that she's gay and she doesn't really do this kind of thing. And later that day, Laser and Clay were hanging out on the street as a dog approaches them. And Clay somehow suggests that they pee on the dog's head. I don't know why he suggested this. This dude is just crazy, I guess. And disgusted at his friend's suggestion, Laser lets the dog loose, and this really pisses off Clay, and he punches him on the face. And astounded, Laser, without saying anything, just leaves the area, cause this Clay guy has a lot of stuff to sort out by himself. Peeing on a dog's head? I mean, what is that? Come on. And after a productive day with his daughter at his farm, Paul offered her a ride on his motorcycle, and Joni accepts. And as they arrive at her house, Nic sees her on the bike and she gets very angry. And she comes out of the house and starts yelling at Joni about how she sees many paralyzed people from motorbike accidents at the hospital and she doesn't support that kind of thing in her own family. But Joni, as the 18-year-old that she is, tells her mom that she's grown and to stop controlling everything that she does for once. And then she goes inside. And Paul tells Nic to back off a little on the restrictions to avoid such conflicts with her children. And she doesn't take kindly to that advice, mostly because Paul is just some random guy that donated sperm and she's actually the parent. And he really has no authority to say anything here, so they end up having an argument. And the next morning, as Jules was working on Paul's garden, he was eyeing her sexually from his balcony. And Jules apologized for what happened with Nic yesterday, and they ended up sleeping together. And Paul's and Jules continued to do it like every day after that. And Jules becomes paranoid, thinking that the gardener knew what they were doing, so she fired him on the spot, even though he was begging her not to. And Paul broke off his relationship with Tanya because he doesn't want to be a 50-year-old man just shagging the next girl he sees. He wants to have his own family. And Tanya seems very displeased by this because she insults him before she leaves. And as Jules and the kids start spending more time with Paul, Nic becomes more apprehensive, believing that Paul undermines her authority over her own children. And after a heated argument with Jules, Nic suggests that they all have dinner at Paul's place to ease the tension. And the dinner goes well, and Nic and Paul bond over an album of their favorite artists, and they also sing a song together. However, Nic is shocked to discover traces of Jules' hair in Paul's bathroom and bedroom. And when they return home, Nic confronts Jules, and at first, Jules denies the affair, but then admits to it. And Nic asks her if she loves Paul, and if she turned straight. But Jules denies both of those allegations, and tells her that she just wanted to be appreciated. That's why she slept with the 50-year-old man. And Joni and Laser overhear the argument, causing the household to become very tense, with Jules sleeping on the couch and the children very upset at their father and Jules. But I don't think we can call him their father because he's just a sperm donor. Let's just call him Paul. Yeah. And Paul, believing that he's fallen in love with Jules, calls her to suggest that she should leave Nic and come live with him, and that she should also bring the kids. And Jules declines this offer, and she gets very disgusted by Paul's lack of understanding of her sexuality. And on the next scene, we see Joni getting drunk as she went to take Jai from a girl he was talking to. And without uttering a word, she kissed Jai, and he didn't stop her. And the night before, Joni leaves for college, and Paul turns up at the house. And Nic violently confronts him, calling him an interloper, and tells him that if he wants a family, he should go make his own. And following this, Jules addresses her family, and she states that marriage is very difficult, and she tearfully admits her errors and she begs for their forgiveness. And the next morning, the family, without Paul, takes Joni to college. And as Nic and Jules together hug Joni goodbye, and they also become very affectionate towards one another. And during the ride home, Laser tells his moms, "You guys shouldn't break up because they're too old to break up." And Jules and Nic both giggle at Laser's comment, and the film ends with them smiling at each other and holding hands. And I hope you guys enjoyed this recap. Remember to leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe to my channel. I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye.